What I'm gonna show you in this video is, in my opinion, the most important principle when it comes to cue ball control and position play. And the good news is, once you understand this principle, you can pretty much apply it to any situation there is on a pool table. That's the great news. And unfortunately, I see way too many advanced players make some of the mistakes we're gonna to cover in this video. But don't worry, if you're still a beginner, you wanna learn about the cue ball, watch this video and learn the proper way right from the beginning. We have three situations: 9-ball, 8-ball and even straight pool. We're gonna start with 9-ball, where we have to make the 7-ball, followed by the 8-ball and then the 9-ball. And let's start very simple and go back to the 8-ball, and let's remove that 7-ball and imagine we just have ball in hand on the 8-ball. What would be the ball in hand way to get on a 9-ball? Well, I think the easiest way would be to just go over, play it into the side pocket and play a follow shot for the 9-ball. This is the easiest way. But we have the 7-ball there as well. And what you have to understand is, when you're trying to get position from the 7 to the 8-ball, that it's very difficult, obviously, to get that exact position where the cue ball just stops perfectly here. So obviously we're not gonna do that. So what is the second ball in hand position? Well, I would say, let's go back and use that as our second ball in hand position, because if I'm having that angle here, all I can do is just draw over and have a straight in shot on a 9-ball. And I would say this ball in hand position is very reachable if you're trying to get from the 7-ball to the 8-ball. We have to keep that in mind, right? So if we're trying to get from the 7-ball to the 8-ball, we're just gonna pick that point on the table and we're trying to bring the cue ball exactly to that point. To do that, we're gonna go 2 rails, come to here, and then in the best case, stop perfectly here. So let's give it a try. Low and right spin. And the cue ball travels. It should stop right now. This was our point. Unfortunately, we hit the ball too hard, and now we don't have a nice shot on the 8-ball because the cue ball just traveled too far. I mean, it's still possible. We could pretty much just play a follow shot, I think, here. And try to get a good position on the 9-ball, which we didn't get. But the problem was, of course, not this shot, which of course was a mistake, but the real mistake happened right before. So let's analyze the cue ball path here. So the cue ball was coming approximately that line. And the problem is, the cue ball has to stop perfectly on that point, on that line. Because if the cue ball travels too far, you see we don't have a nice shot on the 8-ball. If the cue ball stops a bit earlier, where we're perfectly straight in, then once again you're having a problem and you have to play a really difficult shot. Because you have to draw the cue ball all the way back. And of course, you can see even very dangerous with the side pocket, but you don't want to be forced to play that kind of shot because this is way too difficult, no matter the skill level. And this is, by the way, a very interesting reason why pro players just miss less shots. Not only because they're better at shot making, but also because they're not forcing themselves to play such difficult shots. So maybe we're gonna approach the whole layout a bit differently, and we're not just picking a point here, like I used to do it for a very long time. Just the last 5-6 years I've changed my game. Instead of picking a point, why don't we just first pick a line for the cue ball? And I would say, if the cue ball is here, it's fine. It's also fine if the cue ball is anywhere on that line, because the angle will always be the same. Of course, you don't want to be so far away and you don't want to be too close. But I would say if the cue ball is somewhere in this area, then you have a nice shot on the 8-ball. So if the cue ball could travel along that line, that would be perfect. The problem, however, is how do we want to bring the cue ball along that line? It just doesn't work because the cue ball drifts to the right. So maybe we overthink our decision, our ball in hand position, and use a different one. Because the good news is, we can also get on a 9 if we're having the other angle, if we're on the other side. Because if we're having that kind of angle, we can just bring the cue ball into the rail and over to the 9. And this is not really difficult. This is very manageable. So maybe we're gonna pick that line for our cue ball. So let's go over once again and decide on which line we wanna have. And I would say if the cue ball is traveling along that line, we have a very nice angle on the 8-ball. And this is totally doable because you see the cue ball wants to go that path anyways. So very important, before you're picking a point, you want to pick a line where the cue ball will travel. This is the big mistake. You always want to pick a line first. This is the right line, and only now I'm going to pick a point on that line. Of course, I'm not going to pick that point because I'm way too far away. I'm not going to pick that point because if I overrun position, I'm pretty much frozen to the 8-ball. So I'm going to pick my point in this area, because if the cue ball stops here, it's fine. It's all the way fine to here. So I would say I'm gonna go for this point, because if I'm a bit too short, it's fine. If I'm a bit too long, it's also fine. And this is what you always wanna do. You always wanna pick the line first and then pick a point on the line. And of course, as before, we're not gonna pick a line that's not reachable, obviously, with the cue ball. So let's give it a try. Let's see. Here I'm gonna use less low now, and still a right spin. This is a nice line. You can see I overhit the ball and still overhit the ball. I got away with it. The cue ball now traveled a bit too far, but now I have the shot I'm having before. So I messed the line completely up, but I can still play that shot. You can see? So even the cue ball didn't travel along my line, I still got a shot on the 8-ball. So let's do it again. Let's give it another try. Just like that, you can see nice line. Cue ball travels along here, just a bit too short, but once again I have a nice shot on the 8-ball. And this is the beauty. The cue ball now traveled that line. If it would have traveled a tiny bit of a different line, it still would have been fine for a very long time. So you're not only not that dependent on speed control on the line, but also the line itself has a bit of room for error. That's really important. This is why you want to play that kind of shot like that. And you don't have to do a lot with the cue ball. You're coming over. And by the way, also here from the 8 to the 9, I'm picking, of course, not that line, because here I'm way too close to the 9-ball. We will see why this is bad if you're picking a line that is too close to your next ball. We will see that in the next example. I'm also not picking a line that leads into the side pocket because I don't want to scratch. That's why I'm picking that line. And if I'm then off a bit by the line, it's fine. And if my speed control is a bit off, it's still fine. So in the next example, we are about to play 8-ball. And you can see the 8-ball is here where it always is. And let's say we have this shot here. So what we could do in that case is a position where we're going with the natural path of the cue ball, coming over to here, and then coming over to here. So we're picking that line on the table and we're picking that point here. Now, let's see how this turns out. So high, touch of left spin. This is fine. And you can see we got a position on the 8-ball. We're a bit close to the rail, but this is fine. But still, I don't really like that shot for basically the same reason as before. The line is not ideal here. And the problem is, if we're going that path and if you're just hitting a bit too soft, then we're in no man's land. We have a difficult shot. If we're hitting too hard, then we're here. We also don't have a shot. So if I would go that path, I would definitely not try to pass the 8-ball closely, because then this effect will be even greater. So if I'm trying to go that line, and I'm trying to go so close to the 8-ball, the problem is the cue ball basically just has this tiny window where it's fine. Now let's see. If the cue ball is here, it's bad. If the cue ball is here, it's already bad. But now imagine we're changing the line and we're getting a bit further away from the 8-ball with how the cue ball travels. You can see from here, we have a pretty okay shot on the 8-ball. From here, we also have an okay shot on the 8-ball. So you can see by changing your target line from being so close to the object ball, just like I explained with the 9-ball over here, we have just this tiny room for error. If we're going further away, you can see it's much easier. So you will have less angle the further away you're getting. So if I would play that shot, I would try to basically pick, I would say, that line, because here I have room for the cue ball. But still, we're kind of crossing the line, so let's think that over. What if we pick the other pocket for the 8 ball and try to bring the cue ball on that line? Well, obviously, this doesn't work because the cue ball can't come out of the side pocket and go towards the 8 ball. But what we could do is maybe pick that line. Well, I would say pick that line. So make the cue ball come into here and then bounce out. And once again, we have the same principle. Once the cue ball is here, all the way from here, you can see this big margin of error for the cue ball, and we will always have a good shot on the 8 ball. So this is called going into the line, what we're gonna do. But once again, we were picking our line before, and then we're picking our point on the line. The line is not ideal. You can see the line comes out now more like this instead of here. But I would say even my line was, off by quite a lot. This is especially for a left-hander. A very, very makeable, a super makeable ball, to be honest. So you can see once again, you have more margin for the line and also for speed control. Let's give it a final try before we're going to the next example. Now a bit more low, a bit more left, and all of a sudden we have less angle and we have an even easier shot on the 8 ball. One thing that is important though, which I see making this mistake I sometimes see. So let's set it up again. Now here it's pretty easy to control the cue ball because we're pretty close to the 7 ball, right? So it's easy to judge the line of the cue ball and the speed. But what would happen if the cue ball would be here? Would you still try to go now into the line? I personally wouldn't, because this is awfully difficult, close to the rail. You have to get low into the ball, and the cue ball can easily get away from you, and we're left with a horrible shot on the 8 ball. So you have to identify if what you're trying to achieve is also easy to achieve. And this is a bit related, of course, to the cue ball's position, how far it's away from the object ball, and your own skill set. So for example, in that case, if I have that, then I would go for the path where I'm crossing the line. So I would say even here, what you could also do is try to hit the rail here and then once again have the final line go towards the 8 ball. That's a bit tricky though, because if you're not 100% certain to miss the side pocket, I wouldn't do it, and I would just go for that line. Let's give it a try. High, trace of left spin. You can see it's very, very dangerous, so I wouldn't recommend that. This was awfully close to scratching, so don't go that line, but use a trace more left spin or just hit a bit softer, and the cue ball will never reach that rail, and you will still have a good shot on the 8 ball. Okay, let's go to the final example. This right here is a situation from straight pool, and in straight pool you are allowed to make any ball you want to, so it doesn't matter if it's a solid or striped or even the 8 ball. And this is the end of a rack of straight pool. And what you can do is, towards the end, you're gonna make a shot, just like that. And now, this was, by the way, the wrong way to play that shot. You will see that in a minute. But now what you're gonna do is, you're gonna keep the cue ball and the object ball on the table. And then 14 balls, obviously, because you have a total of 15 balls, come out of the pocket. And this is why this game is also called 14.1. And not only 14.1, but also 14.1 continuous. This means if you're a good player, you can basically play hundreds, thousands, or millions of shots in a row. So we're gonna rack the balls. We're gonna keep shooting because we just made a ball. And now what we have to do is we're gonna have to shoot that ball into the pocket, and at the same time, the cue ball has to open the rack so that we can continue playing. And obviously it's important that we're not straight on the shot because we wanna make the cue ball go into the rack. We don't wanna have just a bit of an angle because then we have to really power it, because the cue ball will of course lose a lot of its own momentum. And obviously we don't wanna have that angle where we're going away from the rack. So let's give this a try and just show you how this looks, and then we're coming back to the principle why the shot was really bad that I just played. So hopefully I'm gonna make that one. You can see, and now we can continue playing. And we can because we have a shot on this one. But this is not, of course, about straight pool. This is a lesson of going into the line. So let's remove all the balls and get back to our initial situation. Crazy, by the way, that all of those balls are fitting in just one pocket. So, okay, so why is this a problem here? Well, once again, we're picking this line right here where the cue ball comes out like this. The cue ball ends up here, it's bad. If it ends up here, it's good. If it ends up any further, well, it's also okay, but I don't want to be that far away. So the line is pretty good and the speed control is also pretty good, right? But what happens if I drift a bit off the line? If I drift a bit off the line to the left, I definitely risk making contact with that ball, which is horrible and leaves us with no real shot to open the rack afterwards. So this was a bad idea because the line needs to be really, really precise. And sometimes you have to do that, but in this case you don't have to. Other example, so I'm using a touch of right spin here to definitely avoid that. And all of a sudden we're traveling completely off our line. This is straight. The cue ball needs to travel all the way to here to cross that straight line. And now we're super far away. We don't have a lot of angle and this shot becomes very missable. So is there a better way to play that shot? Yes, in fact, there is. This is, by the way, the most important shot in straight pool to understand, because what you have to do here is look for a different line. And I would say if the cue ball maybe comes from that line and travels from here to here, then we have a good shot here. Here it's perfect, here it's good, maybe a bit too far away, but we have a huge zone for the cue ball. If the line changes a bit to here, then it's still fine for a very long time. And even if the line changes a bit to here, to that side, then it's still fine and we will never cross that straight line. This is the most important thing. We will always have the angle, no matter where the cue ball stops, where the cue ball goes into the rack. So let's play it that way and see how this turns out. So here I'm gonna use a bit of low and a bit of left spin. I mishit the line completely. You can see I came out like this instead of this, but even though I missed that line now completely, I still have a difficult shot, but I have a shot. So this was completely messed up. I think you can't play this shot any worse. And it still left us with a shot, with a break shot, a nice one. Well, not a nice one, but a makeable one. Again, bit too soft, but now it's even better. Now we're already having a bit of a closer shot and a bit less angle. Still played it really, really bad and got a very makeable shot. You just have to make if you want to make high runs in 8-ball and not a straight pool. Let's try it again. Now I messed up the line because I came up a bit too far to that side of the line, but still, this is a great break shot in straight pool. So this is the perfect example. 3 times I didn't really come exactly the line and spot on the table where I wanted, but every single time I have a makeable shot. And this is exactly the difference between professionals and amateur players. They always give themselves the safest option to have a follow-up shot. This is really important. And the only mistake you can make, which I did 3 times now, yes, I know, I have a lot of margin for speed and the line here, and I didn't, just because of that, I didn't pick a specific line and a specific point on the table. This is what you still have to do. Even though you increase in your margin for error, you still want to visualize the line exactly and the point exactly, because then if you're visualizing that line and that point, and if you're off a bit with the speed or the line, you are still in a good position. If you don't visualize it, then anything can happen. You will still get away with it. But just like that, you will still get away with it, but it's much more difficult than it could have been, right? Okay, so if you have any questions about this topic or this lesson, leave a comment down below or go to my website and use the Sharivari AI that basically knows everything I know. And of course, on this website, you also have courses, mental game, pool lessons, and all that stuff. So definitely check it out. Really proud of this project, and I will see you at the next one. Take care.